Hey there, beautiful people. This is Lindy Ford, registered dietitian, clinical nutritionist, and nutrition detective. So we are in a series called The Skinny on Fats. And today I'm going to talk about one of the most important fats. And there's a lot of confusion around the monounsaturated fatty acids, the omega-9s that I'm going to talk about. But there's a lot of confusion around cooking oils. I did a Trader Joe's store tour the other day for a bunch of people, and a lot of questions came up about what should I be cooking with, what kind of oil, and I get that a lot in my practice. So I want to make it really clear today what oils are best and kind of clear up some of that confusion. Just remember about the polyunsaturated fatty acids. That is in the last video. If you didn't watch that, please watch that video. It is so beneficial. It will really help you to understand that they are not all created equal, that there's the omega-3s and the omega-6s. Omega-3s we don't get enough of. We need more of those. It's the walnuts and the chia seeds and the salmons of the world. And then we have the dreaded or not so good omega-6 fatty acids, which actually are detrimental to our health because we're getting too many of them. We just need to bring that consumption down very, very low because they're inflammatory and they cause disease. And today, again, we're going to talk about the monounsaturates. Now, here's the big thing. Here's the big thing I want you to remember about monounsaturates. Most of the time when I say monounsaturates or omega-9s, people say olive oil, right? Well, I'm actually going to give you another oil that I like even better, and you can actually cook with it. And I'm going to give you that a little bit later. But what I want to get across to everybody is the fact that an oil, any kind of oil, whether it be a polyunsaturated or a monounsaturated, needs a certain kind of processing. This is a big area of confusion that people don't understand, that 100 years ago, we didn't have the processing of oils, and that's probably why we didn't have so many oils in our food supply. We didn't have the processing of the high heat. It's the way that they extract the seed or the oil from the seed. It's high heat and it uses chemicals to extract that oil, and it is detrimental to your health by doing that, because what happens is that you are actually, those oils are getting oxidized, and a lot of them are going rancid, and you can't even smell that. It's not you. A lot of times you can't smell it, but they're not good for you, and they cause oxidation in your body, and that causes a lot of issues within your body. So be careful. You're going to pay more. You're just going to pay more, but you're not going to use these oils a whole lot. And so what you're looking for, this is a brand that I love. It's called Spectrum. And there's other brands. I like Hollywood, Hain. I like Eden Naturals, but Spectrum is an oil that you can probably find in any grocery store. Now, what you're looking for, okay, organic is always going to be the best. So this is organic olive oil, because olive oils are not all created equal. So here's the deal, that what you're looking for, down here it says cold pressed. Either it will say cold pressed or expeller pressed. Okay, that means it doesn't have a high heat chemical processing. Huge, big, remember that. Cold pressed or traditionally pressed, those are the buzzwords, or expeller pressed. So that's what you're looking for. So remember this quote by Dr. Kate Shanahan. I love this quote. She says, "Nature doesn't make bad fats. Factories do." So a good fat is something that is going to come from nature and is not going to have a lot of processing. Remember that. So here's a quick chemistry lesson. Bear with me on this, okay? I especially didn't love organic chemistry. Couldn't get above a B to save my life in organic chemistry. But this is very simple. But it's important for you to understand the three different types of fats. Saturated fat is when all the carbon bonds are filled with a hydrogen atom. Okay, so it's like a straight line like this. What happens is that it makes it rigid and stable and actually solid at room temperature. That's a saturated fat, and hence the name. All the hydrogen bonds are filled, so that makes the carbon bonds, are filled, and that makes it a saturated fat. Examples would be butter or coconut oil. And so the next fat is a monounsaturated fatty acid. And so what it is, it's one double bond between two hydrogen atoms. It lacks two hydrogens, okay? And so it's semi-stable. It's liquid at room temperature, okay? And it's sort of and that's what we're going to be talking about today. And then the polyunsaturated saturated fatty acids are, remember that it's 2 or more double bonds, and it's missing 4 or more hydrogen atoms. So it's highly unstable. Polyunsaturates, you really don't want to be heating at a real high temperature. They can easily break, easily oxidize. So that's one of the big reasons that you don't want a chemical process, a high heat chemical process, because these are unstable oils that are going to do really bad, ungodly things in your body. Okay, so remember this too, that even with olive oil, okay, an oil doesn't just have a certain type of, like, this is not just a monounsaturated, okay? They have different constituents. The ones that I'm going to be talking about today have mostly monounsaturates, okay? So it's kind of confusing because some of them even have a little bit of saturated, some have polyunsaturated. It's the percentage. So I'm going to talk about the highest percentage of the ones that have monounsaturates. We know that monounsaturates are healthy, and we know that they are good for us if they're not processed. Again, I'm just going to beat that horse to death. We don't want them to be processed, folks, okay? So pay that extra money and get the unprocessed ones. Okay, olive oil, number 1, it's 73% monounsaturates. But the problem with olive oil, you don't want to cook with it. You really don't. I mean, you could do a little bit of sauteing with it once in a while with maybe some grass-fed butter, but it's best in salads and in cold foods. So the one that I like, my darling right now, is avocado oil. It's called a smoke point, which means it stays stable when you heat it. And so that means that you can heat it at a higher temperature. I love avocado oil. Avocados, I love avocados. Y'all know that, right? Because they are high in monounsaturates. They're also high in saturated fat. We're going to talk more about that in the next video, the dreaded saturated fats, but they're very high in monounsaturates. So avocado, I'm just over the moon about it because it has 70% monounsaturates. It has a lot of lutein for your eyes, and it also helps with the absorption of carotenoids, which are like vitamin A and that you need for your skin and eyes. And then we're going to talk about canola oil. Actually, I want to tell you, avocado oil, that's really the only oil I cook with. That's it. That's the one that I cook with the most. And then we're going to talk about canola oil. Okay, canola oil is really a vegetable oil or a bad oil with a good press agent. We've heard so much about canola oil that is so healthy. First of all, what is it? Well, it comes from something called rapeseed. Rapeseed is a terrible oil. It has a lot of bad chemical properties in it that are carcinogenic and are actually toxic to your body, okay? So Canadian science, hence the name canola, that's where it came from, Canada, so it's a Canadian scientist, came up with this way of genetically modifying rapeseed oil. So it doesn't have so many of those compounds in it, but it still has them in it, okay? And canola oil, to me, being genetically modified, being not real, and also the fact that it's most canola oil that you find in a grocery store is going to be processed is really bad news. Stay away from canola oil, unless if you're going to do canola oil, it's got to be cold pressed. 90% of the canola in this country is genetically modified, so I wouldn't do that. And then safflower oil. Safflower oil is so confusing because there's 2 different kinds, and they're almost like 2 different oils, okay? So be careful with your safflower oil. What I want you to look for is something called high oleic safflower oil. That's the one that has all the monounsaturates that we're talking about. The monounsaturates are heart healthy, are good for your waistline, a lot of good things, all right? But the one that is in most stores when you see safflower oil is the linoleic, and that has more omega-6s, inflammatory. They're not such a good polyunsaturated, okay? And then we have, I'm going to mention grapeseed because that's another one kind of like canola oil that is not a great oil at all, but has a good press agent, okay? So grapeseed oil is really high in the omega-6s. It is a cheap oil that, what are you going to do with what are you going to do with all the seeds from the grapes, okay? That's where they come from, the seed from the grape. And it's cheap. It's dirt cheap. So it is not a great one. It's inflammatory. I would totally stay away from grapeseed. Then we have peanut oil. Peanut oil is a little bit confusing because it's kind of like half and half. It has a lot of monounsaturates, but it also has a lot of those omega-6s. So peanut oil is that neutral oil. I would not do any peanuts are the most pesticided plants on the planet, almost, really, in the United States. So I would only do organic, and I would only do the monounsaturated. I would only do it in the expeller pressed. It is high. It is not high in mono. It's like half and half mono and omega-6. Okay, so honorable mentions are the nut oils, okay? But they're really expensive. So if you get a nut oil, I would just use it for special occasions, for gourmet cooking, which I never do any gourmet cooking because I'm not a good cook. I let my friends do that. But the honorable mentions are macadamia, which has 84% monounsaturates. That's a really good one. Almond oil has 66%. So remember that organic is always best. And I'm just going to beat this to death, that if you buy any of these oils, even olive oil, make sure, and not all believe it or not, most olive oils are expeller pressed, but some of them are not. And so you need to be really careful and make sure that they say that they are cold expeller pressed oils, okay? The next time we're going to talk about the dreaded, the evil, saturated fats. You're not going to want to miss that. It may liberate some of you. It may make some of you cry. I don't know. But we're going to talk about saturated fats and some of the real science behind saturated fats. So thank you for holding with me today. I know that was a lot, and I know that was a lot of chemistry, but I hope you got a lot out of that. Please put your comments below. Please like this video. Oh, please, please, please like this video. And also subscribe to this YouTube channel. And like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. I'd appreciate that as well. And remember that everybody, every single person deserves to be optimally healthy. Thank you so much. This is Lindy Ford, and I'll see you next time.